Mr. President, if you're ready, we'll get underway.
Right.
Okay. Thank you very much for speaking with us. For nearly 14 years of war, you were in hiding from Bashar al-Assad's military, and now we're talking to you in the palace built by his father. What was it like when you first entered this place? You said much evil happened here. Are you comfortable working here now?
الصراحة ليس كثيرا.
We spoke with former US officials about your victory over the Assad regime, and they told us they didn't see it coming. They didn't see you coming. In fact, in the year leading up to your victory, many Arab countries were embracing Bashar al-Assad again and bringing him back into the diplomatic fold. Why do you think you and your followers were underestimated? So another face-to-face meeting. Your government has been discussing a security agreement with Israel. And to be clear, this is not a comprehensive peace deal. The US is trying to broker a limited security agreement. Does that, for you, mean that Israel has to return all of the land that it seized after the Assad regime fell? Does that need to happen before you agree? Well, you say it backfires, but you know, since October 7th, Israel is saying they're not going to take any chances whatsoever with their security. There are still thousands of fighters here in Syria. Can you control them? So to be clear, Israel bombed the defense ministry, and you just said they bombed the presidential palace twice. That does not sound like you are close to even a limited security agreement. Am I understanding correctly? When you were on the battlefield, you used the name Muhammad al-Jolani. In Arabic, al-Jolani means from the Golan Heights. I understand your family lost their home there, became refugees after that 1967 war you mentioned. You must want those lands back. When the Israeli prime minister ordered these bombings here in Damascus, he also carried out strikes in the south of Syria. Israel said publicly their intention was to protect a minority group there, the Druze. And the prime minister said he had to protect them because your forces did not. How do you respond to that? Why do you think Israel has an interest in keeping Syria weak if the risk is potential terrorism?
بسبب أطماع التوسعية.
You believe Israel wants to take more Syrian territory? I want to come back to what you just talked about with the changing region. But on this question of your governance, in Soweto, there was criticism that your forces didn't stop the violence and in fact might have made it worse. And then there was video that the world saw of unarmed people out in the coastal areas who had war crimes committed against them. HTS actually was accused of attacking those minorities, the Alawites. How are you holding to account those who carried out atrocities? You have told the Syrian people that this is not about retribution, but these attacks, they still happened. So if you can't reassure minorities that you are their president too, don't you risk these other powers coming in and interfering? You have so many different forces pulling at you, pulling at Syria right now. You have the Israelis, as we talked about, in the south. You've got the Kurds in the northeast who are talking about a bit more independence. Russia wants to keep its military bases here. You've got camps filled with ISIS families that Iraq largely has not agreed to take back. There are just ordinary people living here who want electricity and they want running water. How do you keep all of this balanced and this country unified? You mentioned Western countries helped train that fighting force, the SDF. The US did a lot of that. And in fact, you just recently met with the commander of all US forces in the Middle East. The CENTCOM commander met with you. There are still about 1,000 US troops here in Syria to fight ISIS. Are you committed to the American fight against ISIS? And what is the plan for all those ISIS terrorists and their families who are living in those camps? Aren't they a security threat here if they stay? So we will see your Syrian military carrying out operations alongside the US military? So we've been talking a lot about your plans now and the vision and the future that you see for Syria. But the past influences how people see you and see Syria as well. When you met President Trump back in May, did you see what he said about you?
اطلعت على بعض الأمور يعني.
He described you as handsome, tough, and he said you had a strong past.
يعني هل تشكون بذلك؟
I don't have any doubt about your strong past, but it's because of that past that you were designated as a terrorist by the American government 12 years ago. You know this because of the ties to al-Qaeda in Iraq, which became ISIS, and then until 2016 you ran an al-Qaeda affiliate that you broke those ties publicly. But there was that $10 million bounty on your head until just a few months ago.
خسروه. كان سينفق أموالا في مكان غير صحيح.
I understand what you're saying, and I know you don't want to talk about the details of that time, but big picture, did you actually believe in those terror groups then, or were they just a means to an end? You said you don't want to be trapped by the past. In fact, many of the officials that I spoke to about you describe you as a pragmatist. Other skeptics say that you change to meet what you need to be in that moment. And that's important as you make key decisions for this country to understand who you are and the direction you're taking Syria in. Are you saying that you are just a completely changed man? You believe the world failed Syria, and now the world should help rebuild it? That's a big statement.
هذه حقيقة.
But all the facts that you laid out about what the world did not do to help are true. But you wouldn't have wanted US military force. Would you? Wow. President Trump suspended some of those sanctions for a limited time, but what you just said, the Congress has to take a vote to permanently lift them. They have to believe that Syria will not allow a resurgence of terrorism here to do that. President Trump still has Syria listed as a state sponsor of terrorism. Can you get them to change their minds so that the investment dollars you so badly need can come back? You said that you plan to serve for 5 years as president, that you're a transitional leader. A constitution still has to be written. You don't yet have a parliament. It looks like you will be putting one together, but you get to pick a third of it, and the rest will be chosen by others that you have approved. What kind of government do you want to see here? Is it a democracy? You mentioned there are 14 million Syrian refugees. You also have a highly educated diaspora. You have doctors, you have lawyers who left Syria. That professional class, is there a place for them in this new Syria? Because we've spoken to some who say the circle around you is very tight, that you don't trust a lot of people who weren't with you, alongside you on that battlefield. Is there a place for those who have this professional background to build a new Syria with you? You need help. Syria needs so much help. You showed us the devastation today. There is so much work to do. Do you want people working alongside you who will tell you when you're wrong? I want to come back to something you said earlier. You said that you kicked out many of the militias that were here in Syria. There are still people who believe violence is the answer right now, not politics. How do you convince them to follow what you just said? A quagmire. You can avoid a civil war.
أعتقد سوريا تجاوزت هذا المشهد.
You know, I ask about the militias because we hear from those in the region who are concerned. Israel, of course, says if you allow Iranian-backed militias or weapons into this country, that they will take military action. Can you prevent those outside spoilers? Russia, is it welcome here? It still has military bases. You also have 1,000 US forces on the ground in Syria. Do you want them to leave? I raise all these things because Syria is at the center of so much. The Middle East has changed dramatically in the past 2 years. Yours was just one of the earthquakes. What happened here in Syria has changed the region. How do you see...
زلزال إيجابي يعني وليس سلبي. الزلزال ليس توصيف صحيح. غيرنا، نحن عالجنا الإشكالات التي كانت تحدث.
It's an idiomatic phrase. It's an American phrase. What I meant is there have been really big changes in this region. Syria, and your rise is one of them. But what we have seen with this war in Israel, with Hamas, in Gaza, what we have seen happen in Iran, this is tremendous change. How do you think of Syria in the middle of all of that right now? So you're going to the financial capital of the entire world with a business pitch. That's what I hear you say.
No, that's good.
You'll be taking business meetings in New York?
أكيد.
We've talked about a lot. You've been very generous with your time. Is there anything I haven't asked you that you think we need to know, that America needs to know about you? I want to ask you about something we already discussed in regard to what happened on the coast. The United Nations does say that your security forces violated humanitarian law, maybe even committed those war crimes we discussed. Will you commit to making the results of your investigation public? So does that mean you will hold anyone, any fighter who commits an atrocity like that to account? And what does that look like? First time in 60 years, and you will be the first president in more than 60 years to address the UN. Is your priority to change the perception of this country? Understood. And lastly, you are going to discuss business when you were in New York. Is it true that you were a fan of the economist Milton Friedman? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.